Usually when I talk about events, I talk about how most downsides or complaints can kind of be, tolerated, understood, overlooked even, so long as it's safe and no one got hurt. That's it. That's my intro. Hi, I'm Amanda. You're watching Swell Entertainment, and today we are talking about TwitchCon San Diego 2022. First and foremost, the theme of this video is pretty much going to be, once again, two things can be true at the same time. Kind of been the theme for 2022 with this channel, because one person had this experience does not invalidate this person's experience, okay? Especially when I make videos like this, talking about what I'm going to be talking about, I get comments that are like, oh, well, you only ever complain and you go looking for trouble. The trouble part, you got me. I definitely always go looking for trouble. What's going on? Where can I get there? Okay, cool, bye. 100%. I'm messy and thrive in chaos. What can I say? But also, I had a good time at TwitchCon. I did. I had a good time. I was like, wow, this is great. And a lot of the things that I'm going to talk about, I had one perception of it while I was there. And then looking at what's happening online and having spoken to other people and seeing other people's experiences, what I saw was not the reality of a lot of things. I think that's okay to talk about. And it's important to talk about those things. This is the Twitch sweatshirt that I bought while I was there. I was going to make a whole comment about how, YouTube needs to step up their merchandise game so I don't have to be a YouTuber representing Twitch wearing Twitch merch, but they made comfortable sweatshirts, and YouTube gives us out very nice things when we go to things, but you guys just need to have just give me a comfy sweatshirt. That's all I'm asking for. I'll pay for it. I paid for this. I don't mind, but give me the option, not just something that's just silk screened across the top, but something embroidered and pretty, I think that'd be fun. Anyways, let me change this because I'm already gonna melt. One moment. There we go. It's still purple, so it fits the theme, but it's unbranded. I went to TwitchCon with the express purpose of how I approach most normal events that I go to, reviewing it. I also went because I have had requests from you guys to start streaming more, whether here on YouTube or on Twitch. And so I thought it would be a good idea to go and meet some gaming companies, some brands selling custom builds and pre-builds and the like for gaming PCs, because I have no idea where to start with that. But mainly I went with the purpose of reviewing TwitchCon. Let's talk about the mask thing, because as someone who has been to a lot of events this year, I'm not sure of the exact number at this time, but it's been quite a few. This is the only event that I've been to that required both a proof of vaccination or a negative COVID test and required masks while at the event. No other events that I've been to in 2022 have requested masks or required masks at all. They did that as an overcorrection because what happened was they were originally not going to require masks, not going to check vaccination status or require proof of a negative test. And a bunch of streamers and attendees said, okay, cool, then we're not going. Because first stream, we're going to talk about safety in a couple different regards in this, but one of the things that can't be ignored with the global pandemic is that we are still in one. COVID is still a problem. And you can pretend that you don't care about it, that you're vaccinated, or that you've had it already so you can't get it again. But it's something that is a concern for a lot of people. And that's not something to be ignored, especially with events like this. And the same goes for these streamers, these creators that are going to be doing crazy amounts of meet and greets. Most people get sick after conventions. Con flu is a thing. It's so many new people from so many new places, all in one place, breathing the same air. People get sick. It's a thing that happens. So I don't think it's wrong for people to be concerned about COVID in these spaces, especially these content creators. Thursday, they opened up registration to go pick up your badges Thursday, even though there was nothing going on for overall attendees. I believe there was a partner party and partner shopping alone, but that was it. That was for Twitch partners only. So as far as I could tell, they had the one registration sites, but they had two spots where you could get this wristband. So in front of my hotel, which was the Hilton Bayfront, which was next to the convention center. On the other side of the convention center is the Marriott, which we will be talking about. You could go there and get your wristband so you weren't waiting in line in front of the convention center. No wait, I literally walked in, did it, and then I was able to get inside to get my registration and get my badge, no problem. Yes, I do have a Twitch page, channel, whatever it's called. Channel. Swell Entertainment. I made it in 2020 to make sure that I was able to get the Swell Entertainment title. I think I have 3 followers. If you want to follow me over there or whatever, go right ahead. I have no idea if or when I'm going to start streaming on Twitch, but it's there. And these you had to wear the entire time. And it's my understanding I had to have my wristband available at all times. And then once you did that, even entering to go pick up my badge, I had to put a mask on. And they had signs posted everywhere for the most part, entering the expo hall, exiting the expo hall, the second floor, all of that, talking about wearing masks. Now, they weren't really enforcing masks for the most part. In some places, yes. Entering into the convention area, the expo hall, and the upstairs area by the escalators, and most of the entry points, yes. They had security there talking about pull your mask up, wear your mask, you have a mask. Going into the registration area to enter into the convention area, they were handing these out. They had extras, they handed me one on my way out. However, and this is another thing I think to point out as far as safety goes, inside the convention center itself, inside the expo hall itself, inside, I would say, the artist alley, the meet and greet sections, they did have security for the meet and greet sections. Certain areas like the Cabana where they had an 21 and up over section available, they had security in those spots. But for the most part, as far as like roaming around the actual expo hall, the upstairs area, things like that, not so much. If they did have them, I could not identify them, which is kind of an important factor of security because if something's wrong, you need to know who to run to. There were people not wearing masks in the expo hall and upstairs and the like. I will say that it was the minority of people that were doing that. Most people was wearing their masks. I do want to point that out because some people on Twitter was like, there's barely anyone wearing masks. That's just not true. Most people were wearing masks. Cosplayers were wearing masks. A lot of them had them matched with their costumes. There were a lot of content creators, I would say, that were walking around that weren't wearing masks. Listen, I'm mostly nobody, especially at a Twitch convention of all places, and I got recognized with my mask on. I think you can wear your mask for at least through the super crowded expo halls. So as far as the expo hall goes itself, like I said, I've been to quite a few events this year. And I will say from day one, I was commenting about how the expo hall, I felt, utilized the space really well at TwitchCon. I did not feel that there was too much space between the booths and things like that. But I did not feel cramped and I did not feel like super exposed. I did feel at VidCon that they were not utilizing the space well. I thought booths were way too spread out. It felt emptier. It made the attendance size way more into question, I felt like at VidCon with how they had laid out their expo hall. I also felt that this event actually had a very good variety of booths as well. They had a bunch of companies on the sides that were specifically selling products for streamers and gamers alike. There was a lot of controller companies, merch companies, gamer drink supplement, game boosts as well, like specific games and specific gaming companies. Past the expo hall was the Twitch Rivals Arena. I was only able to really get in there and sit down once, and I didn't stay in there all that long. All of the big tournaments and such that were going on in there, the big events that were happening in the Twitch Rivals Arena, the line would get crazy long. So upstairs, they had a couple of different rooms. They had the AFK, they had a couple of different game rooms and things like that. They had their smaller theaters for their smaller panel rooms. They had their glitch theater, which was their big panel room. Across the walkway outside, they had their meet and greet section, their artist alley, and a little food court of sorts, okay? And then outside on the balcony, they had some drink stations, a stage, and then the Cabana, which had another stage and drinks and all of that. And I ended up not going over there because I didn't even realize it was there until like the end of the event. My bad. Let me go back to the expo hall for a second to talk about the foam pits. So there were 2 foam pits at this event. There was no ball pits, but there were 2 foam pits. There was the one Legion with Lenovo, and then there was the Wendy's verse one from Wendy. Twitch themselves and Twitch employees did not set up these foam pits. It was inside their event, so they are in fact, I think, responsible for what goes on inside their event, especially not stepping in sooner and shutting things down. But they are not the ones that are directly responsible with the setup of these foam pits. Someone probably should have walked up and been like, hey, this doesn't seem safe. Okay, backing up. I don't want to show the exact moment. I will link the tweet that has the video if you would like to see it. Personally, I physically flinched because I think you can see the exact moment she's immediately in pain. And that does not make me comfortable at all. Gladiator fights, what happen is you're on 2 pedestals that are raised above the foam by at least a few inches. And then you battle each other, someone falls off. And then what happened is Adriana was jumping and excited, jumped up, did a little gymnastic split move, and then landed quite literally on her tailbone, it looks like. And because of how shallow the foam is, she basically jumped directly onto concrete and ended up breaking her back in 2 places. This happened after, I believe, The number I heard was 2. The only photo evidence I've seen is one other person, and one other person has come forward and said, I was also injured. And that was, I believe, a dislocated knee that happened on Friday. Multiple injuries had happened from the foam pit prior to this particular injury. And then even when they got confirmation publicly that she had in fact broken her back in 2 places and was having a rod put in, surgical intervention because of your booth, they still let it keep going. Various gladiator fights until it was shut down about noon is my understanding. Right away, fuck. These are the clips that I took of the pit itself. As you can see, that pool is only about a foot raised. And then the foam is brand new, what looks like hard foam cubes inside. There's maybe 2 layers of cubes, if that. And then on top of that, you have the pedestals that you were on for the gladiator fights raised above the foam. So regardless of height or weight of the individual, you're already having a farther drop before you hit the foam, and then you're gonna hit the concrete. And so the fact that no one said, hey, this seems unsafe, because there's so many things you need to account for something like this. Height and weight of individuals can fluctuate so drastically. You cannot possibly believe that this amount of foam would be safe for everyone that might be at TwitchCon that might want to be involved in your booth. People keep saying, oh, she can't sue because she signed a waiver. Listen, I'm not a lawyer. I don't have a law degree. But I've never heard of a waiver signed in a moment to participate in something that would protect a company from someone needing surgical intervention from it for an injury sustained in their booth. What I'm hearing is that where there might be a case here, which I think there is that injuries had already been sustained. They knew injuries had been sustained, and they still kept the booth going. That then led to this injury where Adriana breaking her back in 2 places because of their booth. And before someone says, oh, you're just supposed to fall off of it, you can't determine how someone is going to fall off or be pushed off or whatever. Even the gladiator fighting, someone could fall wrong. What was set up was not safe for anybody. No one should have allowed this. Now I'm gonna show you the Wendy's verse 1, because it's a very different setup pit. The pool is about, arguably, I think at least 2 feet high. The beam that they are on is level with the foam. It's not elevated. The foam is also 1 deeper already. The foam is also shredded flaps of foam. So already you have way more foam in there because they're arguably smaller pieces. The pieces are arguably wider, but they're thinner foam, so you can have more in there. You can fill up more of the air space in there than just say a firm cube that's never been smushed or used in this type of thing before. And someone on Twitter, thank you for this, I'm gonna share the name because they gave a very good visual. This is from MX Dizzy. These pits only work when they are deep. You can see just how shallow this one is because they're just stacking foam cubes on the floor. It is no wonder that people got hurt in this activity. This is an exceedingly dangerous setup. This is a photo showing how these pits are usually set up. So they have foam pylons below there, then there's a trampoline bed, and then there's foam on top of that. So that's where you get the bounce. So who is at fault here? Arguably everyone. She could sue, in my understanding, feasibly anyone. She could probably even sue the event center itself. She can sue TwitchCon. She can probably sue Twitch. She can definitely sue Legion because they're the ones that set up this event, you know, this booth. Adriana, I wish you a speedy recovery because you looked in severe pain, and I know the back injuries are awful. So I really wish you the best, genuinely. And if you do sue them, I hope you get all the money. I believe someone else got injured in the Twitch Rivals arena. Someone hurt their ankle. I did not see who it was. I believe it was a streamer. I don't know if they fell. And then, like I said, someone got injured, at least 1 dislocated knee from the gladiator style. Let's talk about the accessibility things. TwitchCon does something with accessibility stickers. So it's my understanding that basically it's a sticker that you apply for, and you get a sticker put on your badge that gets you in through accessibility lines, gets you an accessibility seated spot, gets you just certain accommodations for various differently abled situations. Again, I am not disabled, so I did not apply for these. And I will say I was impressed at first with Twitch. Most of these events I go to, they really don't have much of these options. So these just being available, everywhere I went, there was a different line for accessibility options for the people with the accessibility stickers. There were seating spots with accessibility stickers. One of the panels I went to, they had seats already set up for people who needed sign language interpreters to sit there for them so that they didn't have to pull a seat up. Like, that was already a thing that was set up. And that was something I was very impressed by because so much of that is not something that I see. There are options there, I'm sure, but they're not visible in a way that they were here. Apparently, what ended up happening, and I'll link the tweets that I'm going to talk about here, at the event, it became clear to people, and allegedly from some employees for TwitchCon themselves, that you did not need to show any form of reason and or proof of why you would need an accessibility sticker. Allegedly. This is a double-edged sword here because I don't think that you should always have to prove your disability in order to get those accessibility options, in my opinion. The ethics of that is not something I think I can really speak on. And I personally did not see anyone in particular that was, saying like, oh yeah, I just asked for one and they gave it to me. I did not see that personally. Doesn't mean it didn't happen, but the ethics of that, I can't personally speak on that. What I did hear complained about a lot was people jumping into and using the accessibility entrances to get into events or venues, specifically panels. This happened, in my understanding, a lot with the panels that the Dream SMP in particular were being involved in. A lot of people complaining about cutting happening, the lines not being respected in a way, whether it was the stickers for the accessibility lines or who was at front of the lines, people who had been waiting for hours to get into panels and then being skipped over because people realized, oh, they'll let me in if I go into the accessibility line and going over there. So people who were waiting for that long did not get in. There were multiple accusations made of people who, with mobility aids, like for example, walkers and wheelchairs and the like, being shoved, being trampled over, being pushed out of the way to get to either streamers or to get to certain places. Claims made about people laughing at people using accessibility aids. There are claims made by people saying that TwitchCon employees were making jokes with each other and talking about how, oh, I bet half these people aren't even disabled in the accessibility lines. Things like that. I did make out a public announcement on Twitter saying that, hey, if you're here, if you are willing to talk with me, please let me know. No one who was at TwitchCon this year wanted to talk to me or reach out to me. However, I did have someone reach out to me who went to 2019 and who had an accessibility sticker then and was telling me about her experience then. Pinkerchew on Twitter reached out to me and said, hey, I can talk about my experience from 2019. If that would help at all, I had an accessibility sticker then. Pinkerchew made the choice to not bring their wheelchair into the event because they didn't want to risk it at an airport, which if you have seen anything from wheelchair users with airports, apparently that is an ongoing issue, is airlines damaging mobility aids. Very quickly, other attendees caught on that you don't need to prove disability for a sticker, and pretty quickly I was finding myself taking shameless floor breaks because of lack of seating. It was all the correct moves were made by the team that set up the convention, but when it came to convention days, there was zero communication. No one seemed to have any idea how any of the accessibility measures worked or were meant to. I had to actually explain the sticker to employees who saw it for the first time on my badge. And I said, God, that's just negligence at that point, because it is. If you are not conveying with your volunteers or your employees of your event how various things that are going to be working, that is on you. That's a failure of planning. That's a failure of execution. These events are massive undertakings, and I'm not denying that. But there are certain things, especially when it comes to dealing with attendees, disabled or otherwise, accessibility needs or otherwise, there needs to be clear communication so everyone knows how everything works. If you're going to be posting them somewhere where there is an accessibility line and they're going to be able to deal with that, they need to know about that. That is the only person that responded directly to my tweet. And again, obviously talking about 2019, but that was their experience. Obviously, the execution of these accessibility measures need to be reworked in the future, okay? They're good to have, but if they fall flat on execution when it comes to convention time, when you have all of these people that are either utilizing these accessibility aids or are in the vicinity of these accessibility aids in a way that is then making those people feel unsafe, that has to be looked at. Some people were also talking about that it was difficult for them to get through the artist alley setup with their wheelchairs because it was so crowded. It was a pretty crowded area and a fairly tight area. The aisles were fairly small, I would say, especially with all the people in that area. I don't know how much of that could be fixed because I don't know if that's just like a stationary setup from the convention center itself and that those distances are like all that's available. Like we can't move those. from what I could tell, it did look like they might have been bolted in. The meet and greet lines were apparently a shit show. I didn't even try to get in there, but from where I was standing, it was never not a shit show. I don't know how this understood, because there were people saying I was waiting from 4 a.m. to get in. I don't know if there was a separate access line for the meet and greets, and that's how they were able to wait from 4 a.m. If they were waiting from 4 a.m. when the event opened at 9, and then the meet and greet started at like 9:30 or 10. I know that every time there was something involving the Dream S&P, and I'm talking about them specifically because that is the crowds that I was seeing. And I'm not just talking about that because Dream did a face reveal. Okay, that happened right before TwitchCon. I'm talking about that as someone who was also at VidCon and saw how they were the main characters there as well. This is now their platform. This is TwitchCon. Dream S&P on Twitch. Why you wouldn't think that they are also the main draw after the crowd that happened at VidCon? What are we doing? Like this is just, again, not negligence at that point, but it's oversight. Like, who is running these things? Considering how everyone's like, oh, Twitch usually overcorrects and things like that. I don't understand how that wasn't the case with the Dream S&P people. Like, you're like, hey, we're going to put them in the Twitch Rivals arena. I know you guys have that packed, but like that level of space would make sense to me. Put them in a room for like 400 people at one point for the reunion for the Dream S&P. And then that didn't have space. The lines that I constantly saw for the Glitch Theater when they were doing those events, those lines were crazy. People were pissed they couldn't get in. Then that's where a lot of the accusations come from with like the swapping of lines and like, oh, I need a sticker and things like that. Were those things? There was, I believe, multiple instances, at least 2 specific that I've seen, where streamers were misgendered. For panels and such, is they would put the pronouns below the content creators' screen photo and then their screen name. That's great that you have that, but not if you're going to then misgender someone. It's like, hey, which pronouns would you like? And then they say she, her, and then you put she, her. That's one thing. It's another thing when someone goes by all or any pronouns or she, they, or they, them, and the like, and you don't put that. And then you just put she, her because they present as a female presenting person. Okay. That's not okay. It just isn't. It's not like 2 people requested that they have their pronouns under their screen name. Every single panel that I went to had their pronouns below their thing. And then on the live stream, people were correcting it. And allegedly, it looks like, because I've seen the before and after, the mods were deleting those comments and putting those people in timeouts. The fuck are you doing? What else? I had fun at Twitch. Here's all the shit. No, but as far as the Dream S&P goes in particular, I said this on Instagram after the event wrapped. I was talking about how if there's any group that I think it makes sense to do a tour, it's Dream S&P, okay? And I think that there's a way you guys can do it in a way where you have other people planning and organizing it in a way that you guys only have to focus on being entertaining, meeting fans, doing Q&As, and then, resting and going to the next place in a way that is safe. And that's the thing that I want to talk about as well for a lot of the aftermath of TwitchCon and also while I was at TwitchCon, because prior to TwitchCon, they were getting rid of I believe it was 70-30 or 60-40 split for streamers on Twitch. And then they rolled out a bunch of other shit to hide that. And then they also rolled out a bunch of other shit to hide that they were going to be doing mid-roll ads, forcing mid-roll ads onto streamers. So on Twitter, I saw a lot of people being like, Twitch is taking money from streamers, so they made up for it by spending thousands of dollars to go to this event, go to TwitchCon in San Diego. Here's my opinion on that. This is a very solitary lifestyle. A lot of time is spent alone with this job, which is fine. I'm a loner. I'm a homebody. That's fine. But I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to meet your supporters, your viewers, your fans in a safe environment. And for a lot of people, though some people have said that they don't feel comfortable with this and how things played out, this is supposed to be a safe environment. And the expectation would be that this is a safe environment for both the streamers, the content creators, and their fans and their viewers to go and meet them, where there's security, where there's a line, and they're not overwhelmed and mobbed and feeling unsafe. I've talked about this before. The number of Twitch streamers that have had or have stalkers is stupidly high. I don't think it's out of line for people to decide, I'm going to put my feelings for the platform on hold for a bit so I can go and meet fans and meet supporters and have that time with them before I get home and then rip Twitch a new asshole, okay? I don't think there's anything wrong with that because especially this is one of the first events that has happened. Again, 2022 events are finally starting up again. For a lot of streamers, this was their first event since the pandemic, since prior to the pandemic. And again, a lot of people blew up during the pandemic. This is their first time meeting their supporters ever. So I don't think that it's out of line for people to kind of put that on a pause for everything else so that they can get the chance to meet their fans. There was a couple of instances, I believe, where streamers were crowded or mobbed in a way that they felt unsafe. Allegedly, someone's face got licked by a fan. What the fuck? Still in a global fucking pandemic. Ew, don't, no, stop it, be gone. And then security either did not intervene at all because they weren't there, or they intervened late, or they just kind of, okay, hey, you're not allowed to go in here. Go. This doesn't happen with me, but I want to point out something that I think people don't always consider. So I'm a mid-sized creator on YouTube. And what happened a lot is at this event, I got recognized still. Everyone was very respectful. Everyone that recognized me was very sweet and respectful. And I want to make that clear. There was never an instance where I was being recognized one after the other and people are forming a line to come and talk to me. Because of the size that I'm at, I am not someone that people running events or organizing events outside of TwitchCon or TwitchCon itself, I'm not someone that's on their radar. I'm not important enough for that. However, I am someone that a lot of the people working these events, like lower down in their company, I am someone that they recognize. So for a lot of instances, they were like, oh yeah, Amanda can come in. That's cool. Great. I love your videos. Like that happened a lot. And so I think that that's something that happens with all platforms and all creators. You don't realize how important you are to people in general until you are in these spaces. And so for anyone saying, oh, well, this streamer shouldn't have gone into this space or whatever, I don't think that everyone understands the risk that they pose to themselves or to crowding until they are in those environments. As far as that goes, there's not really a way to fix that. I just kind of want to point out like why that could have kept happening in particular, but the way that that can then be negated or, diminished in the dramatics of it is having more security on the floor. And I will say this, as fucked as Playlist Live was, their security was insane. If you told me they had more security than they had attendees, I would believe you. Crazy amount of security. That should have been happening here, especially with the amount of people that are there. So there was claims made about sexual harassment and drugging of drinks and the like. In particular, there was claims made about the Twitch party that happened at Petco Park. I went alone. But I was not harassed at the party or had anyone being creepy with me outright. I had guys annoying me. One guy would not stop talking to me the entirety of Meg's set. So the TwitchCon party happened Saturday night, and it's more of a concert. But that being said, again, this is a security issue. It just is. This is a party for a convention. Just because you have it in a concert-like setting, that does not mean that security should not be a priority. And there was security around the background. There was some on the stage. There was some to enter onto the ground of the field itself. Kind of really fun to walk on the baseball diamond. I was in a baseball family. What can I say? I love that shit. I'm not even a fan of the Padres. I'm easily pleased, okay? They probably should have had more security at the front. You should have had, honestly, plainclothes security in that crowd. That's where you have plainclothes security, is things like that. And before anyone says, oh, but it's a good time, we checked cards and all that, does not matter. When you have alcohol involved, you need to have more people around, especially in an event that is sanctioned part of your convention. It's not just a concert. It's a TwitchCon party. You can't just treat it like a normal party. You just can't. Meet me at the altar plate. Side note, I have a crush on all of you guys now. Hi. Then we had Kim Petras, which, side note, I am familiar with Kim Petras' music. Seeing people introduced to her music in real time was immaculate. So fun. Classic lines like, I can make you come, and singing about being the throat goat. Hilarious. Shout out to everyone that let me into your parties and stuff. That was very nice of you. As always, I don't shout out the people that I meet at these just because I end up leaving names out. But thank you to anyone who came up to me and said that you liked my content. I always appreciate that. That's really nice. For the most part, I had a really good time, and I don't want to say I didn't. I did. I had a good time. Whether you're a streamer, want to be a streamer or a gamer, or you want to game professionally, I do think something like this is a good idea. Obviously, it's hard for me to recommend this in the, because again, two things can be true. Safety needs to be a priority, okay? Anytime, it needs to be a priority. You have to. Same thing with, I talk about marketing, safety should always be ingrained in that, okay? Someone should have stepped in for that pit. That pit was not safe. It wasn't a pit. It was a mat. If that, and it was not safe. The elevated things were not safe, okay? They just weren't. Someone should have stepped in and said something. Security being almost completely lacking on the expo hall floor, that's not safe. People being shoved, not safe. I know there's always crowding in convention centers, but there should always be exits and safe options. And crowding is one thing, but not having security in those spaces to guide the crowding, event staff not being able to communicate with each other, and then not being able to communicate with attendees. That's something, okay? Those are things that can be fixed and worked on, and that's something that needs to be prioritized. People staying at the hotels, that should never happen. Attendees camping out of hotels to go and wait for streamers and content creators alike. It's my understanding that they put them up, or they were all staying at the Marriott. I was staying at the Bayfront, which is on the other side of the convention center. That should not be a thing that should be happening. Again, you should have security there. It's a safety measure. You should not allow them to camp out there. Even if they are staying at the hotel, there needs to be measures in place to keep them safe. I'll give that again to Playlist Live. They treated that entry level to where the guests were staying like it was Fort fucking Knox. Didn't matter who you were, who was telling you that they knew you. If your name was not on that list, you were not getting through that doorway. And that should be the instance here as well. One of the talks that I really liked that I went to was talking about parasocial relationships. I think it was called You, Me, and Parasocial Relationships. I do think that's important to talk about because, again, like I was saying, the stalker situation with Twitch, that's something important to talk about. And something that a couple of people were like, they repeated themselves because it was viewer versus creator and creator versus viewer. And someone's like, those are the same things. No. You thinking we're best friends because I make videos, that's viewer versus creator, or viewer to creator. Me saying, you guys are the only people that care about me. You guys, I would be miserable without all of you. Oh my God, I want this thing so badly and I can't afford it. Oh my God, you're sending me money? Oh my God, so I can get it. You guys are amazing. I couldn't have done without you. My community is so amazing that you guys were able to buy me this Gucci bag or this thing, and then I never tell you about it again, or I lean on you for emotional support. Also grooming. That is creator to viewer. That is creators taking advantage of their audience. That is a parasocial dynamic. There is grooming within that as well. And that's something that I will never fucking tolerate. All in all, will I go back to TwitchCon again? Probably not, unless I start streaming on Twitch, which honestly at this time, I don't think I will. I'm gonna start doing more live streams on TikTok and probably on here. I've been liking doing the little Instagram lives that I've been doing. Those have been really fun. Have you ever been to TwitchCon? Would you ever go to TwitchCon? If I were to start streaming any platform, what would you like me to stream? Do you want me to try and be a gamer? I would not be very good at it, but I'll try. Would you go to TwitchCon? Are there any other conventions that you know of that are for specifically live streamers or people that want to be live streamers? Let me know. Comment down below. Reminder, I have a podcast. It's on hiatus, but I have a podcast, the Swell podcast. Reminder, I have merch like that mug back there. Shout out to my patron. Thank you so much for supporting me on Patreon. If you'd also like to support me on Patreon, I'll list it down below. Back to my novel social media. That'll be all up here, and that's gonna be it. Have a lovely day. Goodbye. Wow, there was so much to talk about. I didn't even talk about about the chocolate milk trophy that I didn't win. Didn't even get to talk about that from the Need More Milk booth. Thank you, Alan, Cameron, Christopher, Chris P, Crash PC, China, Dirty One Don, Elliot, Evan, Eric, Eal, Hopeless Incognito, Jacare, James, Joe, John M, Jordan, Joseph, Kenny, Kim, Kristen, Lamb, Lex, Lisa, Luis, Matt O, Matthew S, Meme Lord, Michael J, Micah, Nathan, Nathaniel, Pat, Penn, Richard, Rob, Red, Robert, Ross, Sam, Serena, Skylar, Simon, Tasha, Timothy, Tom, Skylar, Simon, Tasha, Timothy, Heavenly, Classic Screen, Tom, QWERTY, Randy, Wendy, William, Zendries, Wink.